So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Retired Living Truth series. And as I see many familiar faces, for those who are new, my name's Brett Janelle, and I'm the host, along with my wife, Annette Janelle, of the Truth series. And today's topic is the truth about selling the home. And is everything good back there, Alexa? Yep. Okay, fantastic. And so just the format for those who are new at home or in the room, basically, today's going to be a little bit different. It's actually going to be Annette and myself presenting. I'm going to spend the first hour talking about the process of selling the home and some of the mistakes to look out for. And then as normal, we'll open it up at 11 o'clock for any questions that the audience may have. So everyone should have a handout, hopefully. For those people who are at home watching, you should have received an email. Oh, thank you. For everybody at home, you should have received an email with a link to the handout. And for those in the room, you should have received a handout as you came in. And on the back of that handout are the mistakes that we're going to talk about. So you might want to make notes as we go along with that. And I think with that, I might just have you come up and join me, Annette. So we're just going to sit, I think, is the idea today. So I'm just curious with our audience, who has not sold a home in, say, the last 30 years? Yeah, a few people in the last 20 years not sold a home? Last 10 years? And who has sold a home in the last 10 years, just out of interest? Oh, quite a number of people. Excellent. So we're going to talk about a whole range of things and mean different things depending on whether you've sold a home recently or haven't. And hopefully, if you do sell a home at some point in the future, this will be helpful in terms of keeping you stress-free or less stressed?
Yeah, less stressed.
Less stressed.
Yes.
So, Annette, could you just start by introducing yourself for those who don't know who we are?
Yes, I'm Annette Janelle, and I have been a licensed real estate agent since 2000. Brett and I started our business in the Bay Area, and we primarily worked with, at that time, with people that were looking to downsize, and we partnered with move managers in the area to help the process. And a lot of times those people that made the move and actually used a move manager, their move went a lot smoother and easier. They were settled a lot quicker. And so when we came here to Nevada to be closer to my family, I actually grew up in Nevada, we looked around for move managers and there weren't any. So we started our own business doing that. So we not only sell the home, we handle everything inside the house as well. We coordinate the whole everything. And we've been doing that. We came here, starting at the beginning of 2016. We also noticed that there was a strong need in the community for, there are a lot of resources, but for being able to pull those together for seniors, it took us a while to put it together ourselves. Like, you know, what kind of communities are out there? What kind of resources are available? And that's how the birth of the Retired Living Truth series started. 6 months after we arrived here was our first Retired Living Truth series. And we've been doing it every month ever since then.
Excellent. So having sold hundreds and hundreds of homes literally over the years, do you think we might have seen some of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to selling a home? Yes. So we're going to share some of the things, just to watch out for as you, if you are selling a home at some point or know someone who is, to, as I said, make the process a little easier. And so for those who have sold a home, you put your hand up in the last 10 years or so. Yeah. Was it as easy doing it now as it was when you perhaps sold a home 30 years ago? Or was it harder now? Harder? And why was it harder? I'm just curious. Just call out what made it harder.
More things accumulated.
More things accumulated, older, so maybe more tiring than perhaps when we're in our 20s or 30s and making a move. So maybe not the selling, but the actual whole moving. Yeah, and what to do with all that stuff that we've accumulated over many, many years. So it kind of changes. So today's really geared at, for those of us who are retired, getting older and are thinking of maybe selling a home, how that is different to someone who's in their 30s doing it, because it is different, as you just alluded to. So I think we wanted this, more paperwork. Yeah, more paperwork now than maybe selling a home 30, 40 years ago. For those who don't know, I'm from Australia. Our contract back there is like 2 pages and still is, the real estate contract. California, I think, was up to 20 pages when we left.
Not quite. It was,
18?
No, it was
It's pretty lengthy.
12. It was 12.
But then all the disclosures and things that go with it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think here, how many pages? Yeah, there's lots of pages. And in some states, it's still just 1 or 2 pages.
So why don't we start off in talking about what's currently happening in our real estate market? How many of you have been watching and seeing the prices of houses just soar? Yeah, it's been crazy this past, well, year and a half. So just wanted to talk about what we kind of going back in time a little bit. We're going to start at the beginning in January of 2017. Our median price was $300,000. And now, just a few years later, 2021, our median price is $530,000. The peak for 2017, 2018, 2019, the peak of our market was in July every single year. We'd see it peak and then it'd kind of go down. And then in January, it'd start going back up again. We saw that every year, but you can see consistently, we would gradually go up. The prices increased around 8% year over year, which actually is higher than what you normally see. Usually you expect around 4% increase every year, but this was at 8%. And then 2020 hit. And we started off as a normal year. Just January, we started seeing the prices go up. And then around March, April timeframe, once COVID was, everybody was well aware of it, it put the brakes on the housing market. We basically had people that were still interested in buying, but sellers were calling us up saying, I don't want to sell my home. I don't want strangers walking through my home. I'm afraid. And so I don't need to make this move. So we're not doing it. And when I say we were getting those calls, not only us, but real estate agents across the board. So we saw a significant decrease in the number of homes available for sale. Then we started getting protocol in on how to show homes. So we weren't doing any open houses. Showings were one person or one group at a time. You had to sanitize your hands, you needed to wear a mask. So there was protocol in place. And so people got a little bit more comfortable coming out and looking at homes, but we still had sellers. If they didn't need to sell, the homeowners did not put their homes on the market. So that really increased demand on the homes. So you can see how we just increased in price in July. We just blew past July. July was a blip on the radar in 2020. Instead of it being the peak of the market, it was in the middle of the market just soaring. So in 2020, the first half of the year, like I said, July is usually the peak of the market, but instead in 2020, the market just went up further the second half of the year versus the first half of the year. And then we come to this year, 2021. We leveled off a little bit right before January. And then January hit, we went up even steeper in prices this year than we did in 2020. Basically, buyers were getting trained that when they saw a house on the market, we would literally get agents calling us up and going, what did the sellers really want for their home? Because they weren't offering what the price was, they were offering above it. It was not uncommon for us to see 10+ offers on a house. Now, if you're one of those buyers that you write an offer on a home, only one offer is being accepted. So then now we've got 9 buyers that are frustrated, that were really excited about that home and moving on to the next one. And it's the same thing, offer after offer, they're getting rejected. So they're getting really frustrated and they just put out crazy offers on places. And that is what happened this year in 2021. But our peak of the market, July. So we're seeing our market correct right now. July of this year, our market peaked out at 530,000, and we are still at that price now at 530,000. So instead of it peaking and us seeing a decrease, we're kind of leveling off and being around the same price. Homes that are below the median price, so below 530,000, we are still seeing multiple offers. Those that are at or above the median price are sitting on the market a little bit longer. We're seeing price reductions now. Buyers are at the point, they're like, you know what? We're seeing a shift. We're going to hold off and wait and see what happens. So we don't have as many people out there buying the homes. So we, as far as talking to our clients about selling, we always talk about what's going on in the market. What are we seeing? Because earlier this year, it was basically, what price would you like to get for your home? Let's price it so that we get a lot of interest in it, and the market is going to bring it up. Now, because we're seeing things settle down, if you're in the upper price, you do not want to price your home aggressively. You want to be more conservative on it because buyers have pulled back. And it's not good to have your home sitting on the market for an extended period of time. People see the longer days on market, there's something wrong with the house, and it's much harder to get people to come back and look at a home that they've already seen at a higher price. So we want to be able to be at the right price. So you, in some cases, we price it at, or maybe even a little bit below what the last one sold for, just to be more conservative as we're in the changing market.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing homes that are now sitting on the market and having several price reductions and probably selling for less than they should have to begin with. So I'm just curious, can anyone tell me how much the median sales price has gone up from July of last year to now? How much has the price gone up by as a percentage?
25%.
Yeah, very close. It's actually on the screen, 20.5. So you had all the right numbers there, Joe. Yeah. So Annette was saying how it's gone up 8% each year. This past year it's gone up just on 21%, which is, makes it really expensive. Someone trying to buy a home and you're paying a 20% premium just over a year ago. And some of the reasons for that is, as Annette alluded to, demand. And part of the demand was people working from home. Husband and wife are now both working from home, need a bigger house. So, they're moving. And then we have just the normal population who are moving, and people who are downsizing. And so part of the slowdown, I think, over the last couple of months, things are kind of normalized out a little bit. Things are maybe getting back to a little bit more normal. But has anyone noticed what's happening with interest rates? No, they're going up. Yeah, they're actually at the highest they've been in the past 6 months. And they're projected to continually kind of slowly increase as the economy and trying to keep inflation down. We're going to kind of see rates go up a little bit. The government aren't buying bonds like they had been. They're slowing that down. So probably interest rates are going to go up. And if interest rates go up, what does that do to the real estate market? Yeah, it slows it down as a way the government can have some influence and perhaps trying to normalize the market, because it's not sustainable going up 20% per year. Affordability becomes a real issue for people wanting to move. They just can't afford to buy a house because it's just, the payments are just too much. So they need to kind of slow it down and by increasing rates. But increasing rates, what does that unfortunately do to buyers? It means they can't get as much house. Yeah, every percent the rate goes up, it's 10% less house we can buy. So it's trying to balance all of those things out.
And then people also talk about that, I'll wait for a California buyer to come in and buy my house because they have all the money. We actually have not seen an increase in the number of Californians. I mean, Californians have been coming here for years buying houses here. We have not seen an increase in the past year and a half of more Californians coming in to purchase. So this movement is not just from outsiders coming in and buying these houses. It is from people that are here that are buying the homes. So it's not just California. That has not changed.
Yeah, it's kind of a misconception that it's all of California coming in. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about why selling a home today can be overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming. There's two things that get caught when I talk to people that they get caught up in. Where am I going to move to? And what do I do with all my stuff? I mean, those are the two things that hold people up from actually making a move. So what we talk about is just focus on where you want to move to and don't worry about everything else. Because if you know where you're moving to, then, because we have people that make lateral moves. So they're in a 2-story house, they want a 1-story house, but they end up buying a house of similar size. So they can literally take all of their belongings with them if they choose to, but it's knowing where you're going to first. And then there's people that are downsizing. I talked to a couple yesterday, 4,000 square foot house, and they're looking at moving into a 1,000 square foot apartment. They have some serious downsizing to do, but until we know exactly where they're moving to, it's harder for us to help. So focus on that and don't worry about everything else. Once you know where you're moving to, then we look at what are we going to do with all your belongings. And you don't have to do this alone. There are teams of people that can come in and help you with your belongings. The one thing that people cannot help with is your paperwork. So knowing which paperwork is important to you and you want to keep, and photographs, those types of things. But actual belongings, furniture, how many towels to take, kitchen appliances, all of that, there is help for that. You do not have to do this alone. And if you're planning on making a move, it is better that you don't do it alone, because there is value in your items. And if you start giving away your belongings ahead of time in preparation for the move to make it easier as far as the move, you may be giving up some value there that could actually help you with your move in the long run by getting some money for those. And if you have other people helping you, then those items will help pay for the movers. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So you don't want to give them away ahead of time. So number one, you want to focus on where you're moving to and not focus on everything else. The two is what to do with all the stuff. There's help for that. And then who to choose for your help. There are lots of different resources, and it's just, you want to talk to, and we'll get into further detail on this, but you want to talk to your prime people that will be able to help you through this process. You could have a family member. We've definitely had family members come in and they are very organized and you respect their opinion. I mean, it's important that you are on the same wavelength, and they may be able to help and direct in what's going to happen, or you can bring in professionals to come in and help you with it. Again, we'll talk about that in more detail. And then the movers, the actual moving itself, who is going to help you with that move? Who is going to be good, trustworthy, and somebody that you can rely on? Again, if you get the right contact to help you, they will be able to direct you with the movers on who's a good contact with that.
I guess I just add, if you are thinking of doing something in the near future, plan your movers in advance, because they're really busy at the moment. Lots of people moving, and we've had people think that they can call up and go, I'm ready in 2 weeks. And the movers are going, well, sorry, we're like 3 months out. So just kind of keep that in mind.
And Brett brings up a really good point. If we know, let's say you say, okay, I want to move to, I'm just going to choose a place. Let's say you want to move to Revel. And Revel has a place open within the next month that's available. Our next call is to the movers to find out when they're available. And then we coordinate that with the community that you're moving into and center around that. Okay, then that's when the move is going to be. If you're going to be buying a house or moving into apartment, we do the same type of thing. We figure out, okay, where are you going? And then when are the movers available to make that happen? So we're working all the different moving parts at once to make it easier for you, and then come up with a game plan and present it to you. And if you get the right people working for you, that's how it should be. So it's whomever you choose, you want them to come up with, help you with that game plan.
And of course, you can do it yourself as well, as always an option. But yeah, like out of state moving's another one we've encountered. Yeah, you got to really plan some of the out of state moves if you're moving somewhere else. Exactly. They're just very busy. So let's talk about, where do I begin?
So you want to obviously make a plan, and it could be, the plan could be at this point, I need to make the move. You may not have all the particulars ironed out. You may not know exactly where you're going to yet, but you want to make the move. The key thing is you want to bring in the key people to help you. This is where I'm going to get into more detail on that. We are real estate agents. There are 3,500 real estate agents in the area. You want to choose somebody that can help you with this process. So I would recommend that you talk to the real estate agent that you trust and bring them in long before you actually plan on selling your house. And you talk to them about what your plan is, what you want to do. We've had people talk to us a year in advance, 6 months in advance of them actually putting their home on the market, because they're trying to figure out how to make everything work. So the key, if you have a home to sell, is to talk to the real estate agent soon, and you just sit down with them and you go over exactly what you want. I want to make the move. I'm not exactly sure where, but this is why I'm making this move or want to make this move. Do you have suggestions of what I should consider? Open up and see what they are able to offer you and how they can help you make this process easier for you. And do you have any contacts? Who do you recommend that I speak to next? Who else can help me with this? So again, opening up that conversation, and then that will help you through the rest of it.
And I'd say that even if you do know where you're moving, it's still important. And it doesn't mean yet that your home's going on the market. You know, when you talk to your agent, it just means that they can help you to make sure everything's in place so everything goes smoothly. Because we've certainly had us personally and other agent colleagues, you know, they get the call, okay, we want to put our house on the market, you know, next week because we're moving to Arizona. And then there's all these things that have been missed, and now it's stressful and a panic for everybody trying to make everything happen so quickly.
As I mentioned at the beginning of this, we have two businesses, the real estate and the move management. So our move management business, we have definitely gotten the calls where they have sold their home. They've already sold it, but well, sold it means I'm in contract with the buyer, and they need to be out of the house in 2 weeks. And now they're calling our move management company and saying, I need help. I have all this stuff. I need the movers. Can you help me with this? All of this should have been lined up long before they even put their home on the market. So all of that would have been falling in place so they wouldn't have this stressor 2 weeks before close of escrow. And then at that point, they're actually giving up a lot of money because remember I said that there's money in your belongings. You haven't allowed yourself to actually get money for that. At that point, we're just donating as quickly as possible in order to clear out the house. It's not, unless we can go to a consignment shop. Now, one of the things that we talked about a few slides ago is the fact that we have a lot of people have been working from home. So, and then we have a lot of sales, you know, people have been moving out. That's when we saw that graph. When people stay at home, they see a lot of their belongings and they've been donating a lot. They've been clearing out their house. Not that they have any intention of moving, but they've been clearing out their home. So our donation places are really full and they will not automatically take what you have. We oftentimes have to call around and find out who is going to take what we've got because it can change too. They could be totally full and would not be able to take anything. There are items that you may have that is of value and the consignment shop isn't going to take it because they have too much of that one item. So it is very imperative that you do this well in advance and don't think, oh, selling the house is easy. I'll just put it on the market, get it sold, and everything else will fall into place. You actually need to work on all these other items ahead of time before you put your home on the market. When you sign a listing agreement, the real estate agent needs to put your home on the market within 72 hours of you actually signing that agreement. Unless you sign a form saying that you do not want your home on the MLS. The majority of the listings we take, actually all of them, we have them sign that form. None of our clients are going to be ready in 72 hours. There are too many things going on to work out and to put into place before we actually put it on the market.
So we're at kind of like step 2, working out who your team is. And then if you're doing a lateral move, if you're just moving to the same size house as Annette said, maybe a 2-story to 1-story, but it's the same square footage and you can take everything with you, then that makes it really simple, doesn't it? Or if you're moving to a bigger house, then you've got room for more stuff. But if you're moving to something smaller, more manageable, you're downsizing, you can see there's a whole series of steps. And we're not going to go through them, but there's a whole lot of things that need to be kind of in place before we ever get to actually selling the home, which is down at like step.
Well, packing, everybody's going to need to be packing. So that's step 8. So the steps before that would be more along the lines of downsizing.
Yeah, and sometimes they can happen after the home's in contract and sometimes before, depending whether you're moving before or after the sale. So, but you can just see there are a whole series of things before we get to step 13, which is actually when the house is going on the market. So depending on the type of move, and that's why it's good to plan early. So what to expect? So we just wanted to talk a little bit about what to expect before, during, and after the sale of the home, just at kind of a high level. So before going on the market, what can we kind of expect?
So preparing the home. Now, this happens to do, it's going to vary between people. If you are going to be in the house when the house is on the market, oftentimes people choose to move before and then they sell the house, so it's empty. But if you choose to be in the house, we're going to be preparing your home. We're going to be staging your items. We're going to be clearing out as much as possible so that when people walk into your home, they can envision themselves being there instead of noticing everything about you. We want them to notice the house. We want them to notice all the features it has and not focus on, wow, that's a cool item, or wow, there's a lot of stuff in here. So, and it really, even with pictures, we do that a lot with photographs. We may clear out your house even more to take pictures. And then we have a house we're putting on the market where we actually cleared it out more for photographs, but we know that she has to live in it. So then we put items back so that she can actually live, soap dispensers, things that are just everyday items you want, but you don't necessarily want that in a photograph. So we stage it for photographs. We stage it for you actually just living in the house and keeping it tidy. We get the cleaners in. The two key things that sell houses the most: a very clean house and a bright house. So if you have a home that is more on the dark side, you want to make sure to turn on all those lights for showings. We want people to notice that. Open up the blinds. A lot of times people will close the shades because they're not there. We want the buyer to see how light and bright the house is. So lights, open up the shades, make sure everything's really clean. Those are the key things as far as getting the home on the market. And then we do our marketing and we have you approve our marketing. So it's good, whatever agent that you work with, ask them to look at the marketing, make sure that you're good with what they say about your house, because you are a partner with your agent. You know more about your house than the agent ever will know about it. So you want to make sure they point out all the features that are great about the home. Now, there's some things they can't say. Legally, we can never use the word quiet because that is subjective. So there's certain things you may say, or nice neighbors. Well, again, subjective.
Yeah.
So there are some things we legally cannot say, but there are things about your home that we want to point out, and we want you to make sure that we do that.
Yeah, and amenities, things that you take advantage of that are close to your home that your agent may not be aware of. So yeah, just pointing all those things out. And so what we're talking about here is kind of generic. So it's not necessarily what we do or another agent. You just need to ask the questions of what you do. But this is kind of the general process that most agents would be following. Yeah. So that's the before going on the market. And then during the time we're on the market.
So there's going to be showings of your home. And if you are still in your home when the house is on the market, it is best that you are not there when the house is being shown. The reason why is, there are several reasons. One is we want the buyer to feel comfortable walking through your home and envisioning themselves there. If you are there, you're distracting them and they feel uncomfortable in your home. They're not going to feel comfortable opening up cupboards to see how much space there is to put their belongings. They don't want to do that. I've shown up to homes with buyers and the seller's there and chooses to walk us through the house. So instead of the buyer focusing on what's important to them, the seller is now pointing everything out that's important to the seller. And I have never sold a home where the seller was there because it made the buyer uncomfortable. They looked at the wrong things. Afterwards, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice what kind of oven was it? Was it gas or electric? And that was something that had been important to the buyer. And now we have to go back and look at pictures. So it is not good for you to be present. Now, the weather can be pretty lousy outside, and maybe you're in a situation where driving is you're not comfortable with that. We've had people where they will, you're just going to excuse myself. I'll be hanging out in the garage while you look around the house. That's fine. If it's nicer outside, I'm going to be hanging out in the backyard. Take your time, look through the house. I want you to feel comfortable. So arrange that with your agent and let them know so the agent can prepare the buyers ahead of time to say, hey, the seller is going to be there. They will just step out when you arrive. So everybody's on the same page. Again, it's just open communication with your agent, and then that way they can pass that information on. Now, how are these appointments being made? Most real estate agents use a third-party service. This is just for this area. It's different in different areas, but most people use a service either called Showing Time, or their office makes all the arrangements. And what happens is an agent will call up Showing Time, or they'll go on their computer and say, I want to show 123 Main Street at 3 o'clock tomorrow. We'll be there between 3 and 3:30. And so Showing Time will contact you, and they will either call you, email you, text you, however you have decided you want to be contacted. And it can be all three if you choose. And they will reach out to you and say, this agent wants to show your home tomorrow between 3 and 3:30. And you have the choice. Again, you will make this arrangement with your agent ahead of time. You will either need to confirm all appointments before the agents can come, and you'll say, okay, that's fine. So you'll accept it, and then the agent will be showing up. Or you can have it where you just want a courtesy call. You just want to be told that somebody's coming. You don't need to confirm it. Most people do it that way, that just the courtesy call, if they're not planning on being in the house anyway. They just want to know that somebody's going to be there so that they don't show up during a certain period of time.
In the shower.
Right, or I want to be in the shower. You can also make arrangements. Let's say it's very difficult for you to get up in the morning and it just takes you longer to get moving, and you really don't want showings before 11 a.m. You can convey that to your real estate agent. We can block out time. No showings before 11 a.m. and the latest showing needs to happen before 7 p.m. You know, whatever works for you. Or let's say you're on the market and then, you've got people coming in from out of town and they're going to be coming over to your house, but you don't want showings during that time. So you talk to your agent and you say, I want this period of time to be blocked out because I'm going to be entertaining at my house. That is okay to do. Now, in a fast moving market, right now things are changing. So it depends on what your price range is, if you're going to be fast moving or not. It is best to not block out times. It's best to have it as open as possible because you want people to see your home and get into contract as soon as possible. But if in a slower market, it is totally fine. We've had people where it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get a home on the market. If they take an evening and want to have that evening blocked out, we can definitely do that. So again, it's open communication with your agent about that.
Feedback?
Oh, feedback. That's the other thing is we ask for feedback, and most agents do. They will contact the buyer's agent and say, what did your clients think of the house? They will either email them and get feedback that way, or they'll call them up and get feedback. And you want to talk to your agent and make sure. Now, not all sellers want to receive the feedback. I have definitely had sellers that are like, you know what, I think my home is perfect and I cannot bear to hear otherwise about my home. I don't want anybody to say anything negative about it, so I don't want to see the feedback. But we've had other people that really want to know what people are saying about their home. So however you want it, you communicate with your agent, and they can set it up so that you can receive the feedback or not receive it. I have had instances where the homeowner is like, I don't want the feedback, but I want you to tell me what we need to do. So in that case, I pull up a report and I can sit down with our homeowners and say, we're seeing consistently, we had one house that backed to a busy road. We thought we priced it right for the busy road, but everybody that came in said the house is great, but that road over and over again. And so I just talked to them about the fact that we're seeing the same thing over and over. You know what you can do about a busy road? Absolutely nothing. There's nothing you can do about a busy road. So if you're seeing that kind of feedback, the only thing we can do is change the price where the road is not an issue anymore, because you're getting such a good deal on the home. They're like, we love the house, the road we'll just deal with, we'll figure it out. So, and then there's other instances where we've gotten feedback. We had one house where we had 40 showings in one weekend. Now this is with the homeowner that was at home and couldn't leave the house. 40 showings in one weekend and no offers. Do you think there's something wrong? Yeah. We we don't always know exactly what the buyer is going to think. That's why that feedback is so important. In that case, that house had 9 sequoias in the backyard. Now they're
Big sequoias, very big.
sequoias, huge trees. And the feedback was that the buyers were concerned about foundation issues, even though there was no indication on the house that there were any foundation issues. We didn't know that that was going to be an issue for the buyers until we started getting that feedback. So instead of reducing the price, we went and got 2 separate arborists to come out and look at these sequoias and at the foundation and give their independent opinions. And we provided that to the buyers, and then we got into contract. So the feedback helps us to know what we need to address. Is it price, or is there something else that we need to attend to that could get the buyers interested in the home and actually write an offer?
And then once we have an offer, then we have negotiations agreeing on everything within the contract. And then after.
So once we get into contract, you as the seller have all the control until you sign that contract with the buyer. You get to control whether or not you want to sell it to that buyer for that price, for those terms, because we can always counter offer them. But once you sign that contract and say, I'm good with everything you say, you have literally turned over control to the buyer. So now the buyer, as long as the buyer meets all the criteria in the contract, that means the time frames, they have to get their loan done within a certain period of time, and everything's outlined in the contract. They have to get their inspections done during a certain period of time. As long as they meet those, then the buyer is staying in contract, and you cannot get rid of them. You may not like them. There are definitely times that you may have issues with the buyer, but you cannot get rid of them if they are meeting the criteria in the contract. Have I had sellers back out of the contract before? Very rarely, but it has happened. So there's always a loophole in some way that you can do it. But for the most part, once you sign that contract, the buyer has control. And as long as they're meeting all the criteria, they're good. Now the buyer put down a deposit when they wrote their offer. 1% is usually a good price to put down for a deposit. We do see some crazy numbers like $1,000 on a $500,000 house. Now, the deposit is basically saying, I'm putting this money with the title company within 1 day of acceptance. The title company holds it. If I back out of the contract, then that money will basically be paid to the seller. I'm going to explain that a little bit more, but they be paid to the seller if I back out. $1,000. Most people can walk away from $1,000. So we try to get it to be closer to 1%. So if it's a $500,000 house, you're looking at $5,000. Make it hurt a little bit more. Then, so that's a term that you can have in the contract. And if I'm getting too much in the weeds, Brett,
A little bit.
sometimes.
You are a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to be here till noon.
Okay, so really quickly, it is that deposit money. If the buyer backs out and they do their inspections and there's something that comes up, they get that deposit back because they did their inspections and there's something from the inspections they weren't happy with. If they back out after they do inspections and everything's good and all of a sudden they just had a change of heart, then that money is at risk. And when I say it at risk, both parties need to agree, but for the most part, it usually ends up going to the seller. That's why it's good to have that deposit amount, a decent amount.
Did you want to just briefly touch on then repairs as part of that?
Yes, so the buyer, when they write their offer, they do put in the contract that they will ask no more than X amount of dollars in repairs. That doesn't mean that you need to pay that amount. That just means that when they do their inspections, ask for more than that. Lately, we've been seeing $0. People have just been accepting it as is because they're just excited to get their offer accepted, and they'll do whatever they can. But as we're in a changing market, I expect that we will start seeing numbers in that line. So usually you're looking at $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 in repairs. That means that the home inspector will go through the house, take a look at everything. And if there's things that come up from that report, the buyer has the right to ask for those things, those items to be taken care of. And it won't exceed the amount that they put in the contract. You can sell the home in as-is condition. Talk to your agent ahead of time. Tell them that you want to sell the home as is. You don't want to do any repairs. then the agent will make sure that the buyers know that going in. And even when they write their offer, we can always counter back at that. So again, it's really important just to have really open communication with your agent and tell them what your expectations are.
Yeah, and if you know there's things that need to be addressed in your house, let the agent know so they can notify the buyers up front. Because the hardest thing for a buyer is they're going in, they're all excited, they don't see things that might be wrong, and then they see it in the inspection report, and then that's when they're kind of freaking out, going, "Well, we need to take care of this, this, and this." But if you told them up front and they know that, then it's much less of an issue. Where we usually see the problem is when the inspector finds major things that you as the homeowner knew about but didn't tell anyone, just hoping it no one to notice, or alternatively that you didn't even know about, because sometimes the inspector finds things that there's mold up in the attic, there's some foundation issues, there's cracking somewhere you didn't know, and some of those can be serious things that are very costly to repair. So that's usually when it becomes stressful for everybody. You didn't know, the buyer didn't know, so how do we now address that to keep everything on track? And then the last part is, signing your life away on the property, going to the title company and receive that check, the proceeds from the sale. So that's the process condensed very much. We've skipped a lot, but it kind of gives you the before, during, and after. So what we really wanted to talk a little bit about is some of the mistakes that we see. Again, this is from our perspective, but some of the things that we've seen time and time again, and these are on the back of the handout. So if you want to take additional notes there, but things that we encounter that I think by knowing it, you can put yourself in a much stronger position when it comes to selling a home. So the first one is, hiring an agent who isn't focused on being able to handle your needs. So let's just talk about that a little bit. So some examples of someone who is not focused on your needs could be because you didn't let them know what your needs are. Here are some of the challenges I'm going to have that I am at least aware of as a home seller. And then sometimes that's because maybe we have a family member who's an agent and they're new, but you love that family member to death and you want to give them an opportunity. We quite often see that go wrong just from lack of experience. They haven't sold enough homes. They haven't helped seniors with some of the challenges that we have selling a home. So that would be one where we haven't hired the right agent. Do you have some other examples you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, primarily it's you want to be able to ask the questions. It's a key point, like I talked before, is knowing what you're looking for. Ask the agent how much experience they have helping people similar to yourself and how they handled those situations and what are some things that you should be paying attention to. If you ask them questions on, you want somebody that's doing more than just selling your house. You want somebody, well, I shouldn't tell you what you want. You tell the agent what you want. It may be that you don't need any more help, but you just need somebody to sell the house and you've gotten everything else handled. But if you don't, if there's questions, then you sit down with the agent and you say, these are some open-ended items that I have. How would you help me with that? What do you suggest? You put it back on them and you get their experience and see if you feel comfortable and know that they can help you with your needs. Because the last thing you want to do is be calling our company, Janelle Moves Made Easy, 2 weeks before close and saying, I need your help. I had the agent sell my house and now I need to clear out the house and I've got to make this move. That is way too late. You definitely need to do it a lot sooner. So talking to your agent and asking them how they would handle your situation.
And I guess the biggest challenge we've seen working with agents or clients who have worked with a previous agent and come to us, or from just research, is communication is the biggest one. So whenever you're interviewing, talking to an agent, make sure they're a good communicator, that they don't just say, don't worry about it, we'll take care of everything. It's like, well, how? Explain. You want someone who can explain and communicate. So I think that's the biggest challenge everyone has, just lack of communication, not knowing what's going to happen next. So just make sure whoever you're working with is good at explaining the process. So number two, not having a team in place early enough. We've kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yes, you definitely want to have your team in place. Not only the real estate agent, but just the gardener. We've had quite a few calls because the season's changed and we've had people move out of state and they are like, oh, my house needs to be winterized. What do I do? So they're calling us for that and we're able to take care of that. But knowing that ahead of time, it's helpful to, hey, who's my team? Do I have a gardener that already takes care of those things for me? So It's the whole process, not just selling the house.
Yeah, and it could be the son, a family member, a friend that's going to help with packing, winterizing, whatever it might be, but just knowing who are the people that are going to help with all these little things that need to be taken care of so it doesn't become stressful. Number 3, not starting early to handle unforeseen surprises. I guess this is a big one. We see this a lot, especially with retirees.
Yes. So you may think everything's fine, and it may just be fine. It may be that you can sell your home and there's not going to be any issues, but we have learned. Did I tell you I've been licensed since 2000? I've learned quite a bit since then. We literally call the title company and ask them to do a property search on your home, on the home, not your home, but the home that we're going to be putting on the market, because we want to know ahead of time all the liens on the property. Did you have some work done on your property at one point and not pay them? Maybe forgot to pay them, and now you've got a mechanic's lien on the house? Are you in bankruptcy? It's not something that we talk to our clients asking them if they're in bankruptcy. We don't ask that. We pull up the property search and we look, and if there's a bankruptcy going on, then we don't want to put the home on the market. Then it pertains to your lawyer. We want to know, we're waiting for the attorney to tell us it's safe to put your home on the market, because the last thing we want to do is put your home on the market and then the proceeds don't go to you. They go to the people that you owe money to. So we don't want to do that. So it's all of these things are good to know in advance. If you had a deed upon death, we had a couple that we were talking to. He owned the property. He wanted to make sure she got the property if he passed away before her, but he didn't want her to be on title, didn't want her to have part of it while he was alive. The problem with the deed upon death, and they came to me and talked to me about wanting to sell the house. So they're talking now, and he doesn't really want to sell, and she wants to sell the house. She wants to go to something smaller. Well, he's the one that's in poor health. Now, if he passes away before her, she gets the deed upon death. Well, the title company will not insure a property for 18 to 36 months after the death of the person that owned the house. Because of the deed upon death, they need to know whether or not there are any other people that have claim to the property. You got to give them time to show up. So here she's already talking to us about wanting to move. It's too much. And if he passes away before her, she's going to be forced to keep that house. Now she could move out and rent it, but she will be forced to keep the house. So those are some things you just want to take a look at and be aware of. We always look at the history of it. Oh, HOA dues. Have you not been maintaining the front yard? Did you know that the HOA will fine you? And if you're not paying those fines, they can put a lien against your property. We want to know ahead of time before we put the home on the market if that is an issue.
So I guess the point here is that of all the people we've helped, when these have come up, most times they're not aware of any of these things that were against their property that was going to slow it down or prevent it, delay it from selling. So I know we all go, okay, I don't have to worry about it. But by planning early, sometimes there's surprises we're just not aware of.
We had one where they bought the property quite a few years ago, and they had a loan, but they also took out a private loan. And the private loan was due upon when they sell the property, but they forgot about this private loan. Well, we run a net sheet for them, and they're looking at their takeaway dollar going, oh, okay, I've got that much. And they're already making plans on their next house where they're going to, and they actually got into contract on another house. Well, then we ran the property search and found out, surprise, you owe quite a bit more money. You're not going to have this extra cash to walk away with. So again, these are really good things to know before you even put your home on the market, just to have a clear picture. So thinking your home needs to be updated before you sell. Have any of you watched HGTV? Yeah,
A few of us.
Yes, a few. Okay. HGTV is fun to watch, and they basically do the latest and greatest to make the house look pristine. You do not need to do that to sell your home. In fact, by you putting extra money into your home, you may not see it back when you sell it. So you may be just throwing money into the house when you don't need to do that.
But the new buyers will be super appreciative.
Yes. Or maybe not. Maybe it's something that's not even to their taste. So it is, again, really important to talk to your team, and that in this case, with your real estate agent, and ask, do you think I need to do something to my house in order to make it sell for a higher price? I want to know what kind of return I would get. So it's good to, if you want to do that, but you don't have to. You can sell the home exactly the way it is. Remember what I told you, the two most important things, a clean house and a bright house. It doesn't have to be totally fixed up. In fact, if the house is completely original from 1960, it is better to not do a thing to it than to put money into it, because one thing leads to another, and it is going to end up being a money pit, and you're going to end up putting money into it and not seeing it out. So it is, again, really important that you talk to your real estate agent about that. Now, let's say your home is from 1960 and you've completely updated everything except for one bathroom. That one bathroom is going to cost you some money. So then you would be talking to your agent, what could I do to increase the value with this one bathroom? Or maybe it's just the carpet. Maybe all you need to do is change that and everything else is perfect. So again, there could be something to do, but you don't need the HGTV perfect house to sell the home.
Yeah, and I guess that's sometimes where difference of opinion comes in too, maybe talking to agents. So just always keep in mind what's important to you. So yes, maybe changing the carpet would get you more money, but maybe you don't want to deal with the inconvenience of that. And that's a fair thing. So yeah, some people, yes, let's do the carpet because if that's going to get me more money. But for others, like, I don't want to deal with moving everything to replace the carpet for the difference of a couple of $1,000. I just don't want to deal with it. So just remember, it's all about you and what you want, not necessarily what your agent's saying you should or shouldn't do. Right. And I guess this one, thinking about, needing to update. I know there are people who have delayed a move that they probably should have done 3 years ago because they were thinking about all the things they needed to do to the house to get it ready. So again, just talking early with whoever is going to help you, just to know whether you do need to do anything or not. Because there's nothing worse than someone has a fall and they said they were going to move 3 years ago, but they thought they had to redo their kitchen and didn't have the money to do it. And they could have been somewhere better 3 years ago.
Also, the market changes. Now, you shouldn't gauge your move on what the real estate market is doing. I really am a big proponent. If you've been living in your home and you're comfortable there, you focus on you and what is important to you. But if you've been like, oh, I want to make this move, and you're spending time updating it and the market is passing you by, meaning we're seeing a changing market right now. If you sold your home 6 months ago, you would have put it on at a price and you would have gotten a higher price. That is not the case right now. So you don't want that to happen. So again, talking to your agent.
That kind of falls into the next one, delaying the sale to make improvements.
Right. I think we touched on that.
And then number 6, not reviewing a net sheet. So what's a net sheet?
So a net sheet is how much is your home going to sell for, and then what are all your closing walk away on. Ask your agent to do a net sheet for you, and they should be able to provide that to you when they first meet with you. And now it's based on what their assessment is of what your house will sell for. When oftentimes, like for instance, with us, we don't put the home on the market right away. We'll do a net sheet for you when I first meet with you. And then I'm going to do it again right before we go on the market. I will look to see what the housing market is doing at that time and give you a new price. You can run a net sheet at that time. When we present offers to you, we run a net sheet for the top. So you know what your walkaway dollar is, because it's not always about what the price.
I lost video. Sorry.
Lost video.
Yeah.
People at home? You keep talking, I'll see if I can.
Okay. It's not always about getting the highest price, but the terms in the contract also make a difference, and that can add value. So we run a net sheet so that you will know exactly what your walkaway dollar is to take to your next home, or to go and reinvest, whatever your plans are for that amount. Okay. Now our 7, being present yourself for showings or requiring your agent to be present. There's a couple things with this. First of all, I already talked about you being present during showings, that can make the buyer uncomfortable and they're not spending time in your home. If you require your agent to be present during showings, now you're limiting the time that people are able to come and see it. Now we need to coordinate not only with the agent that's representing you, the buyer's agent, and then their buyer. So all these people need to coordinate to be able to see your home during a certain period of time. It is very limiting and restrictive. I would never recommend that you require your agent to be present. I shouldn't say never. There's always something that could happen that would be different. But again, talking to your agent about options. The lockbox that is put on your home is a lockbox that will tell the agent who is opening the house. So we know who's entered your home. And we require that everybody tell you ahead of time that somebody's going to be walking through your home. So again, we know we have all their contact details. If anything's amiss, we know who to go back to because we know the last person that went to the house. And they know that too. Very rarely do we see issues with people coming through the home. So it is, I would seriously consider not having your agent, that be a requirement for them to be at the house.
Number 8's always fun.
Oh, so I have definitely met with people. Actually, it was somebody I met not too long ago. We sold the exact same model. We were actually in contract on that home. I think it was around for $450,000. And they wanted, the neighbors called us up and said, we'd like to have you list our house, but we don't want anything less than $600,000. Now, it's the exact same floor plan. Yes, they did have some updates, but it didn't warrant $150,000 difference. Even location, it didn't warrant $150,000 difference. So if you are the highest bidder, because at that point you are, if you think your home is worth 600 and the last one, the exact same model is at 450, you are the highest bidder on your home, you should keep your money. You should stay in it. You should not go through the trouble of putting it on the market and having people come through and tell you the same thing. So it is really good, again, if you're thinking about making this move and you have a price in mind that will be your, if I get this price, then I will move. That's another reason to talk to a real estate agent and have them sit down with you and go over exactly what the market is and what the pricing on your home would be. And then you can say, I'm going to wait. I mean, if that's truly the reason why you're moving is for that dollar amount, then you'd want to wait. If it's for something else, then you got to go with what the market is doing at that time. It is stressful going on the market. It's stressful to have people walking through your home while you're there. It would be really stressful if you've already moved out of your home and now your home's on the market and it's just sitting there and you're waiting for it to get under contract. You want to price it to sell, not sit there.
And just a word of caution on that. So when you're talking to an agent, have them demonstrate how they believe they're going to get that price. Because unfortunately, there's agents who want or need business, and sometimes they'll tell the seller what they want to hear. It's like, yeah, I can get you the 600 if that's what you want, because then that gives them the listing and the opportunity to perhaps get other sellers and other buyers, only for you to sit on the market and not sell. So any agent who says, yeah, I'm confident I can get you whatever that price is, have them just show you comparables, what's sold recently in your area that is comparable, that supports. Because when the appraiser comes in to appraise it, most people need a loan to purchase the home. The appraiser is going to go through that same process, and the appraiser is not going to be able to get it at $600,000 to the buyer to get a loan to purchase that home. So then you're going through negotiations of reducing your price. So just have them demonstrate how it is they believe they're going to get you whatever that price is. Any good agent should be able to demonstrate, here's comparables that support us getting X. Exactly. Yeah, just so you're not wasting your time and the frustration of going through that process. Yeah.
I'm actually really impressed. Brett and I went through these slides this morning and we're like, man, we're going to whip through this in half an hour. We're going to have all this time. And we are on our last slide. Right at 11. It's amazing. So our biggest takeaway, hopefully you've got this, is you want to select and communicate with your advisors or your team early in the process. We cannot say that enough. You do it early in the process. We've had people, like I said, talk to us well in advance, 6 months, a year in advance. I've had people say within the next 5 years, I'd like to make a move, but I kind of want to start talking to you about what I need to plan for and do. It is never too early, but it can be too late. So definitely start early and then come up with a game plan.
Yeah. So just before we open up to questions, our next seminar is on November the 18th, The Truth About Spending Your Nest Egg. So we're going to talk about things related to finance and psychology, about making our money last and should we spend, shouldn't we spend, so all of the issues that go with that. And then also on November the 4th, we have a workshop, Low Vision, that Kindred Health are going to do with us. This will be located at our office. And the purpose of this workshop is to talk about sight impairment. So anything that affects us where we can't do things like we normally would, and that glasses or surgery won't correct, we refer to that as low vision. And there are certain things that we can do and modify in our life, our home, in our community to improve our quality of life dealing with low vision. So just some examples might be in the house is dealing with rugs, tripping hazards, and so forth. If we have issues, or perhaps down the road, are going to have issues perhaps with eyesight as we age. So I think everyone will find that helpful. Welcome you to come along. And Alexa, can you just put up the poll for those who are at home? For those who are in the room and like to register for either of those, on your yellow evaluation form, you can just check the box there if you'd like to attend the next seminar or the workshop, and we'll get you registered for that. Can you minimize that window from back here, Alexa, from where you are? Or so let's just open it up to audience questions. Can I get a couple of people to help with microphones? Kristen? And the red button. Thank you, Melissa. Mute, and then just press the top one to unmute it. And for those people who are at home, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand in the Zoom window, click the raise hand button, or you can type in the Q&A, the question and answer little dialogue window. Or if you're on a phone, just press *9 and we'll unmute you so we can all hear you. And if we can just start over here, Melissa.
On? Okay. What is your feeling on selling your own home on your own without any help? Yes, no, or indifferent?
I think it depends. Yeah.
On what?
On a whole series of things, whether you have the energy and the inclination and the knowledge to do it. So there's certainly people who are very successful selling on their own. And then for other people, it's not for them.
What about legality wise?
So legality wise, you can overcome most of that as long as you do your research in terms of what it is that you need to cover. So I wouldn't put anyone off if that's something you want to do. You can be successful at it, but yeah, it's a lot of work. Just know what you're getting into. Maybe if you haven't done it before, maybe doing some research online of other people who have done it, or talking to an agent to understand what's involved, and what are the places where you could kind of go wrong with it, and are you going to end up with a better end result than perhaps if you had someone help you do it, and then make a decision.
Is it on?
Yeah.
I think it's muted. Just hold that red button. When the red disappears, yep, you're good.
Is it worth getting an appraiser to your home first before a real estate agent puts a price on it? To find out what it's really worth in terms of what the house has to offer?
Great question.
That is a great question. So for the most part, no. However, if you've got a very unique home, or we've had ones where it's land, it's incredibly unique, it is good to get an appraiser out to get an idea. But the real estate agent will be able to, they're going to be looking at the same thing, and the real estate agent is free. So no, I don't see the benefit of necessarily getting an appraiser out ahead of time. And also the appraiser is really looking at what it's subjective versus objective pricing is. And appraisers, it depends on what they're pricing it for. They are definitely more conservative when it is in that situation, just what is the value right now? They're going to be more conservative. A real estate agent will look at what is the market doing. Hey, I think you could price it at this amount because the market's going up, or you need to be more conservative because the market's going down. The appraiser's looking at it for this moment in time. What is that house or property worth? The real estate agent will be looking more along the lines of what do we think you can get for the house because of what the market's doing. So if you just are curious about your price of your home, go ahead and get the appraisal done. But I would recommend just going with a real estate agent and getting their opinion on it. And it's free.
I would agree with that. I guess the only, I guess you need to understand why appraisers exist, and their main function is to protect the bank. So the bank is employing the appraiser to do an appraisal to make sure we're not over lending, we're not placing our money at risk that we're loaning out to this borrower. So that's the main purpose. And typically the appraiser is going to be more conservative, as Annette said, versus being aggressive in terms of the price. But where appraisal could help is if maybe it's a family property and there's siblings and you're trying to work out what is a price that we should put it on the market at. But again, your real estate agent is going to pull up the same information. So it'd be rare, not saying never, but yeah, generally no.
We did have one property where it was a family owned property and they just wanted to sell a segment of that property. So they were subdividing it. It was very helpful to have the appraiser's opinion, that was all the appraiser focused on. Was, in this case, it was land and taking that sliver of property and subdividing it. So it depends on the situation. But for the most part, I would say all you need is a real estate agent to give their opinion of value.
And again, you'll get different opinions. So if you've got 3 real estate agents and 3 appraisers, you're probably going to get 6 different values. Yeah, it's just because again, as Annette said, it's subjective. There's no objective way of saying, well, this is what the value is. Yeah, it's what a buyer's willing to ultimately pay. Joe.
Am I on? Yes, I can tell. This is, I think, a touchy subject, but talking about showing a house, and there's 2 or 3 or 4 people in the group seeing it. What do you do about light-fingered people?
So you want to put all your valuables away. You don't want anything valuable set out at the house, and that includes medicines. You do not want your medicines in your medicine cabinet. You want them somewhere else that people won't think to look, because that is more likely what is going to be picked up. Medicines and anything that's easy to slip in your pocket. We had one house where he had it all laid out, all his beautiful watches and jewelry. I mean, those are things you can easily put in. You do not want to leave stuff like that out. You are selling your home. You want people to focus on that. Put all of those items away, lock them up.
Especially if you're having like an open house, because then there's even less control. They're not with an agent, so you don't know who's coming through your house, whether they're legitimate buyers or it's a thief and seeing an opportunity. And then obviously if things are out of value, they're going to be gone.
Yeah, for the most part, though, if you're going through with their agent, the agent's with them the whole time. However, I mean, you can come in with your buyer and they may have extended family that are coming along too that want to give their opinion. And so it's not, then they're splitting up when the agent can't be everywhere. So in any case, just put your valuables and medication away and not in the spots that you would normally put them.
Somewhere not obvious.
Yeah.
We have a question at home from Ken and Davinia. What are the advantages or disadvantages of photography and as showing it staged versus empty?
Another great question.
So I'm glad you brought up photography. I'm going to back up a little bit. You want to have a professional photographer take pictures, first of all. A lot of agents you'll see online that they'll take pictures with their cell phones. They do not present well. Remember, we want a bright house that shows really clean, and dark photos from a cell phone do not do that. Toilet seats up, do not do that. So you want a professional photographer to come in and take photos, and your real estate agent should be paying for that. And regarding the pictures, whether it be staged or not, it is much better. Oftentimes, if we know somebody's going to be moving out of the house, let's say they want us to sell the home after they move out, if they've got nice belongings and it looks good, we're going to have our photographer come in and photograph the house with their belongings in the home before we clear out the house. Because it's easier for people to look at on the computer at a room and say, oh, that's the living room. That's how they set up their furniture, or instead of just an empty room. Now, if you've got furniture or you have tons of belongings and there's no way we could clear it out to make it look good for photographs, it is much better to, so if you have furniture that is not in style, that is not what is modern or what would look good with the style of the home, it's better to clear everything out and have an empty room. But when you're looking at empty rooms, what do people notice then? They really notice the walls and the flooring. So we want to make sure that looks good. Again, cleanliness. So oftentimes we'll have cleaners come in and clean carpets and wipe down walls, just make everything look really good for the photographs.
So again, it depends, and another reason to talk to whoever's going to help you well in advance so you can have those conversations rather than moving everything out when it could have been photographed before things were moved out.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't miss opportunities. Arthur, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. You have listed 8 top mistakes for selling a home. I came up with number 9 and 10
Okay.
Well, number 9.
based on personal experience. Had a house that we wanted to sell, had acquaintances had in a similar house, which had been on the market almost a solid year. And when we asked our realtor, was it going to take us that long? And he said, well, probably not, because the people who wanted to sell were obnoxious. They were giving their realtors hard times, and they had changed realtors 3-4 times within that year and would do absolutely nothing to improve the appearance of their house or make it desirable to sell. We paid attention. We paid attention to our realtor and sold our house within 2 months. Number 10 was animal odors. We had come to Reno the year before we actually moved here, just looking around and taken into one house there. And maybe the owners didn't realize that they had an animal there, but somebody coming in there, it stunk. That house needed to be completely and totally fumigated.
You bring up a very good point. Any kind of smell, smoking's a big one.
Yeah.
And
So we had a client, the same thing, where we asked her not to smoke in the house. And she swore she wasn't smoking in the house.
Guess what all the feedback said from the showings?
The smoke in the house. And she ended up selling the house. A similar home to hers sold for $582, and we sold hers for $525.
Mhm.
And it had to do with the odor. Beautiful home, but they would need to go in and paint it, change out the carpet, change out all the blinds. Yeah.
when I follow up on your comment about hiding things, we were also told to get rid of personal items like photos and stuff. People are not interested in your family background.
Well, it's actually the opposite. They are interested, so they get distracted looking at all of your things rather than focusing on the house.
Yes.
When they step outside of the house with their agent, and the agent says, "What do you think?" It's like, I don't know, but I know all about Arthur. He was in the army and he did this and this and this, but I don't remember the house. So it's not that, they're not going to like your things. They're going to be looking at all the pictures and things.
No, you're trying to sell your house, not yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I would like to follow up on that, though. Some family photos are fine, just a few, but it's when you have, that's all you see. That's the problem. So a few family photos makes a home actually feel warm and inviting instead of cold and sterile. That's a problem with just totally staged homes where they don't have any family photos. And in some cases in staged homes, they have fake photos, basically, of families. Just so they kind of bring that warmth in. So a few is okay. The other one is religious items. You don't want to have crosses all over the place. Subtle, be subtle, not in your face, because we want people to notice your home, not your belongings. Yeah.
So thank you, Arthur.
Yeah, you had some good ones, Arthur.
Yeah.
We should have consulted you
Yeah.
when we did this.
We actually started with the top 50, but we thought no one will sit here while we go through the top 50 mistakes. We need to get it down to less than 10. Yeah, but I like yours. Microphone over here, please, Kirsten. And then we'll come over here on my left.
I have a house in McGill, Nevada that I need to sell. It's a family house. I haven't been there in a number of years. How do I pick an agent to sell it? I don't really know anybody down there.
So that's a good question. I'm not trying to push ourselves, but an agent that you trust, like we could refer you an agent there. So what we do is we go and we find out, okay, how much business, because we can look at that, who's doing a lot of business in the area. And we can actually do a little research for you and refer you an agent in an out of area place.
Yeah, so if you already have an agent, just ask them, is there someone you can refer? But make sure they actually do some homework, like Annette said. They're not just pulling up a list and go, well, here's some people. You know, we get on the phone and yeah, you can do it online. Yeah, exactly. See if they sell homes and then call them and ask them some questions. Tell me about your experience. How many homes do you sell? Can I talk to a couple of clients that you've helped? That's always a good one. Get references and speak to, clients, that have used that agent. And then they'll go, yeah, it was a great experience. They did a really good job, took great care of me. Yeah.
But you bring up a really good point too. It's a family home that you haven't been to in a long time. When we get people that have family homes and they haven't been living in it, they don't really know the ins and outs about it, we highly recommend getting a home inspection done before you go on the market, because then it kind of roots out any issues that might be in the house that you may not have known about. We had one home that we put on the market and we did not do a home inspection in advance. And everything looked great about the house. It was her mother that had owned it. And she had since passed away, but so the daughter was selling it, and it had a metal roof, and the mother for some reason had somebody go up and cover up all the ventilation in the roof. And the metal roof, something had landed on it and over time had rusted, and so water was getting into the attic. Water with no ventilation leads to mold. Lots of
mold.
$50,000 worth of mold in this attic. Do you think that was a big surprise, finding that out? If we had known that in advance, we would have priced it accordingly instead of, we were already in contract with the buyer and finding that out. Fortunately, happy ending on this one. We just reduced the price and the buyer still wanted the house, but it could have easily gone, the buyer just walked away from that one. So highly recommend, if you are not as familiar with the house, get a home inspection.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, I have two questions. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The first one, is there any problem when you're signing a contract with a buyer in saying, could I possibly rent back for a month? It would give you some breathing room to get out. Do you think that's okay to do? Oh, they can turn you down and say, no, we want to get it right away.
Absolutely. I love that you're bringing that up, the rent back. So you want to talk to your agent ahead of time. So this all has to do with planning with your agent and saying, let's say you're moving to a new home and you want to get this home sold, and then the new home will be available 3 months from now or 2 months from now. So we want to time it. So we're going to have close of escrow be maybe a little bit longer, and then ask the buyer, the seller needs a 30-day or a 60-day rent back. We ask for that in advance to the buyer actually writing their offer, so they already know it. In some cases, just 6 months ago, if you were to ask that, we've gotten free rent backs. Up to 2 months of a free rent back, cost them nothing to stay in the house. Usually, though, in a more even market, as we're getting into a changing market, the buyers will ask you to pay for their principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. They don't want it to cost them money that you're living in the house. So you just need to cover what their cost would be to carry that house. The lender, most lenders do not want the rent back to last more than 60 days. Some lenders, it's 30 days, but most of them are at 60 days. If it's longer than that, then it's considered a tenant occupied house. And at that point, the loan would be different. So we have had we had one seller get a 5-month free rent back 5 months.
Wow.
And that was because it was a cash buyer that came in and bought the house, and they were like, yes, you can stay in the house for 5 months, no cost to you.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
It-
My other, oh, yes, go ahead.
It just really gets down to having a plan, knowing what's important to you and talking it out with your agent and coming up with different scenarios. The more you communicate, the better, instead of waiting till after you get into contract and then going, ooh, I need some extra time. How am I going to do this? You want to do it ahead of time.
Way in advance. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd just say, yeah, just make sure you have someone's experienced who knows, who's done it many times and understands how to that. You know, if someone who's just got their real estate license yesterday has probably never dealt with it, so they're going to be perhaps at a disadvantage. But anyone who's experienced will be able to help with that.
Yes, about light and bright. I have big.
If you could just
windows.
hold the microphone closer, just so that
Oh,
people
I'm
at home
sorry.
can hear. Thank you.
Yes, trying to keep the house light and bright for showing. Well, I have two big windows, one in the living room, one in the dining room, and they're facing the property. My house was built several years before we even paid an attorney to have that house move forward, which didn't do us any good because they put shrubs everywhere. Anyway, we can't see the mountains. So that was money down the drain. But anyway, I think there was a variance on the house. And so there's a stone wall, just about 8 feet away from these windows, I think. And most of the time when we're not using those rooms, I have them well covered. There's a drop down shade that was an original. I left that in shears, and that protects everything in the 2 rooms and also helps with insulation summer and winter. And there's no reason to have them open and bright all the time. And new neighbors came in and changed all the landscaping and put a wall, board fence, ugly board fence on top of that wall. I think it's illegal because the county, you have to have no more than 6 feet, even when there's, and I never signed off on anything. I don't think they went to HOA, but rather than nice.
So you're asking about light and bright. So if you're,
Well,
if you're looking.
what can I do if you open the windows and you see an ugly board fence?
Yes, so we can change the blinds. If you have blinds, you can turn them so that the light comes in, but you're not necessarily looking right out at the board fence. We've also done things where we kind of put something on the outside against the fence, so it makes it look nicer. We'd have to look at that, but there are
Yeah.
options. But
There's a
oftentimes-
Virginia creeper I'm trying to encourage.
Yeah.
A creeper, yeah.
Come
So-
on, it's a little bit more time, maybe a fake creeper you can put up there in the meantime. But yes, there are, otherwise we change the blinds so that the light is coming in, but you're not necessarily looking right out at your neighbor or an ugly fence, or, because there are houses we've gone into that you open the blind and you're looking right into the neighbor's house. That's not something we want to highlight, but we do want lots of light. So then we put up some kind of shade that allows the light in, but you're not necessarily looking right at it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you.
You're welcome. Again, it just comes back to planning early, getting your professional to come out and have a look and give suggestions, ideas, rather than like if it was a creeper, that takes time to grow. So we want to do that in advance, not 2 weeks before the house goes on the market. So yeah, just all planning. The sooner you can plan, always the better off we are with anything in life, isn't it? Usually doing things in advance. Yeah, great questions. Do we have any more questions before we just wrap up? No, wonderful. I just want to thank everybody for being here today and at home watching over Zoom. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you next month.